Alright guys, what I'm going to be attempting to do today is actually make a video that shows how to use a free program called Flowblade. If you have a Linux based system, this is a good program that you can try out for yourself to see how you like it. I'm just going to do a demo of it. If you do not have a Linux system, you could dual boot with a Windows computer and use Flowblade also. All I've done here is I've just opened the Flowblade program, and this is a real simple program. It doesn't have a whole lot of features, but it's easy to use and you can put together a video pretty quickly with it. And I'm going to attempt to make a video for my YouTube channel, and I'm going to attempt to make a second video at the same time that I'm going to use. It's about how to do a drop shot rig. What I hope to do here is show you how I put that video together using Flowblade. You can learn something from that, and you can also go into my channel when I get this done, check out the video and see how it turned out. So all I'm going to do here is I've got Flowblade open. I'm just going to come in and add my video files that I'm using for this video. It's that one, and I'm also going to be using this one right here. So I'm just going to open those. Now, this is the actual video footage. I have a lot of other things I'm going to be adding to this. So let me start adding those into the project as well. I'm going to use my intro. That's just an animation with my logo on a bobber. And I'm going to also be using several pictures with text that I created using another free program to use that's called GIMP. You can actually use GIMP with a Windows computer as well. Alright, I've got those added, and I'm going to be using a piece of music. Alright, so to get started out, all I'm going to do is take these video files and drag them down to my timeline. So I'm just going to start with this video and just drag it down onto my timeline. Now what I've got to do is go in and trim this video up some. And I'm going to go ahead and mute this because I don't actually need the audio in this video. Now, as you can see, this video is longer than what fits onto the screen. So all I'm going to do is hit this button here, which will condense the video down into a viewable portion on my screen. And you can see here this little icon just means that I muted the video. In order to do that, I just right clicked on it. I went to mute and pressed on mute audio. If I want the sound back, I could just unmute that. Alright, so in order to do this, I'm going to cut ahead here and trim out part of this video that I don't need any longer. And I'm just going to let that play until it gets to a point where I actually started doing something on the video. Alright, in order to pause that, I just hit the space bar, but you have controllers up here that you can do the same thing with. There's play and pause there as well, or actually play and stop, I'm sorry. And now I want to back this up to where I first started the video. So all I'm doing here is just pressing the left arrow key on my keyboard, and that will take me back to the beginning. So right about there, I'm just going to hit the X button on the keyboard, and what that does is it splits that video at that point. I'm going to come back over here and mute that audio once again. You have tools up here that you can use also, but it shows the keyboard shortcuts. If you hover over a symbol, it shows what the keyboard shortcuts are. And to cut a video, to split it, you just hit the X key. And to me, it's easier to do that than to come find the button up here. And once you've done it several times, it will just kind of become second nature. Alright, now that I've got that split, I'm going to go ahead and delete this section because I will not be using that. So in order to do that, I just right clicked on it and I come to edit and hit delete. Now that section of video is gone. And in order to come back to the beginning of the video, all I'm going to do is hit the down arrow key, and that will take me back to the beginning of this video segment. If I wanted to go to the end of it, I could push the up key, and that will take me to the end of this segment. If I just say I split this video in the middle here, I just hit the X key again. If I wanted to now move to different sections, it will move to the split when you push the up or down arrow keys. So you can see I start here at the beginning. Now I've moved to the end of the first section. Now I've moved to the end of the second section. By using the up and down arrow keys, you can navigate whole sections at one time using the up and down arrow keys. And if you want to move specific frames, you just use the left and right arrows on the keyboard. So I'm going to undo that split because I didn't need it. I was just doing that as a demonstration. These are your undo and redo keys, and you can also use the keyboard shortcuts of Control Z and Control Y to use those. So I've just moved now to the beginning of this video, and I'm going to click the space bar, which will start the video and stop it also. So one press will start it, a second press will stop it. So I'm just going to let this play through and see where I need to cut this video again. Okay, this is the point where I've decided I want to make a cut and delete the end section here. So I'm just going to hit the X button, right click on that, and go to Edit, Delete. So that got rid of that section. You could also click on a section of video to highlight it and hit the delete button, and that would do the same thing. I'm just going to go back and undo that because I didn't actually want to delete that whole section. But you don't have to right click, go to edit. Once it's highlighted, you can just hit the delete button on your keyboard, and that gets rid of that section of video. Okay, now what I want to do is go back through this section and find areas where I can get rid of and trim areas that were wasted time, wasted footage. I might have stopped doing what I was doing, or there might have been a minute where I was fumbling around with something with my hands, couldn't grab the line. So what I want to do now is just trim out some of those sections that are taking up space, taking up time, but not really adding anything to the video. And when I find those sections, I will come back to this editing process and show you how I get rid of those sections. Okay, I found the first spot where I want to trim part of it out. So what I've done is just paused it after I got to that point. I'm going to back this up one frame at a time by pushing the left arrow key on my keyboard. I just pushed the X button, and now I have split the video at this point. So I'm going to move it ahead because you don't really need to see me unsuccessfully trying to grab the line off the table. We'll cut ahead to the point where I've picked the line back up in the video and cut that whole part out. And I'm just using my left and right arrow keys to move one frame at a time. If you hold down the arrow keys, it will move almost like the video is playing in forward and reverse, depending on which direction you're pushing with the keys. So let me see. I was trying to pick the line up here and not doing a good job of it. And now I have the line. So I think I will pick the video up right here. So all I'm going to do here is hit an X to split that section. Now I'm going to come here, highlight the video section I want to get rid of, and hit delete. Now I'm going to push the down arrow key to go back to the beginning of that segment and go back a few frames with my left arrow key and start there and see how that transition looked. So you can see it jumped ahead some until I'd already had the line in my hand. Now there's a section here I also want to cut out, but it's the same process. So you can cut periods of your video out pretty easily where you're not doing anything important. because you know people get bored. They don't want to see you trying to pick the line up off the table for 30 seconds. Nobody wants to see that. So I try to trim those sections out. And Flowblade is a really easy way to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and trim up this whole section. And when I come back, I will be adding the second section, and I'm going to be inserting some text into the video at those points also. Okay, I've got a small section here of video after I've been going through and doing some of this editing, and it's really hard to highlight it with just the mouse. So if you need to zoom in on something like that, you just hit the plus button and zoom it in as large as you need to. Now it's real easy to click on that and highlight it and then hit the delete button to get rid of that little section there. So now I've got this video trimmed down to a length that is better suited to what I'm trying to accomplish here. And I've gotten rid of a lot that I didn't need in here also. So at this point, this section of video is completed. I'm going to start now adding in other components. So what I'm going to do is go back to the beginning of my video and add in the animated bobber. This is what I use for my opening sequence on my videos. So I'm just going to put that right here on the front end, and let's play that. Now, I don't want to jump straight into the video here. I've made a little title section. Let me find it. Here we go. So I'm just going to drag this down in between those two. And this just tells a little bit about what this video is about. And if this is too long, I think it automatically defaults it to like 8 seconds. So if that's too long for you, what you can do is click on that section, right click, and go to edit and set clip length. And it shows the frames that are in there, which is 8 seconds and a tenth of another one. I want to back that down to about 5 seconds. So I'm just going to hold the minus arrow, and let's see. There we go. There's 5 seconds. So just for future reference, 150 frames is 5 seconds. I might come back to that number again, because you can directly input 150 frames in this box. If I just hit cancel and do that again, I can come in here and just type in 150, and that will, and hit the enter button. That changes this number to 5 seconds, and hit OK. Now you can see that clip has just been shortened to 5 seconds. So I'll check the playback on that and see if that's enough time to read what's on the screen there. That works for me, so I'm going to leave that alone. So now I've got my intro, and I've added a little title screen, and I have a note here that I also want to add in right after the title, and I'm going to make it the same length, 150 frames. So that changed that clip to 5 seconds. And after it plays through that, it will go into the video at that point. So I've got my front end taken care of here now. And I realize a lot of programs you can go in and create these title screens and things like that too. I find it just as easy to go into GIMP, which is a separate program, create all these files and save them to the folder where my video files are, and come in here and just insert them as I need to in this program. It's really not a difficult thing to do, in my opinion. But yeah, this, and you can do titles in the Flowblade program, but to me, the quality of the titles you get from the GIMP program's a lot better. It looks better visually, so that's what I tend to do for myself. So now I'm going to, at the end of this video, I've advanced my little cursor here to the end by using the up and down keys. I'm going to add in this section excuse me, I'm going to add in this title here. And this says, let's take a closer look at the knots used in this dropper rig. So after this point, I'm going to go in and do some close-up video of the knots. That way it's easier for people to see. So what I want to do at this point is I've added in this section. I'm going to trim that down to 150 seconds, or I'm sorry, 150 frames, which is 5 seconds. And now I'm going to skip ahead to the end, and I'm going to add in the first knot that I will be showing up close. That will be the double overhand knot. I'm going to add that right there. And I might let this one play just a little bit longer so that people have time to read that. So let's try 175 seconds. I'm sorry, 175 frames. Let me up that to 180. That will be 6 seconds. And I think that will give people enough time to read what that first knot is going to be. So now I'm going to add in my second video clip that was of a close-up of all these different knots. And I'm going to trim it down some. And I'm going to be using these clips, and I'll be inserting these different knot names as I come to them on this clip. So let me skip ahead, since you've already seen how that process works. I'm going to skip ahead some until I'm getting to the point where I've got this second clip edited and I've got in my little title screens added in also. It's the same process. Okay, so I've got my video laid out the way I want it to be now. What I want to do now at this point is I'm going to add some music to my video. So I'm just going to drag that down here to the audio line of the video. And one thing I've noticed that I have trouble with sometimes on Flowblade is you'll want to zoom this in all the way, and you can see where it placed that wasn't exactly at the beginning. And I'm not putting this audio at the beginning anyway, but if you did want that at the beginning, you would have to come back and drag that all the way over. But the way it was before, if I move that back, if you can see the whole video as a whole here without zooming in on it, you can't really tell that that's not at the very beginning. So you'll want to zoom in to make sure that that audio track is exactly where you want it. And as you can see here, it's clearly not at the beginning. Okay, so now I'm going to just get rid of this audio track. I'm going to put it back in here, but I want it to go in a certain area. And where I want that to be is at the beginning of the actual video and not in these first couple of title clips. So what I'm going to do here is, for the same reason I was just explaining, I'm going to zoom in on this to make sure that I get my audio exactly where I want it here. Okay, and I just dropped that right there. So now when the video starts playing, this music should also start playing. So let's see how that goes. Okay, so that's playing when I want it to start. And what I'm going to do is come back and probably add some more music in as this video goes on. I might just loop this track. But if you'll also take a look here at about this point, right over in here, the music actually stops. And there's a sound effect still playing at the end of it. So I don't want the music to actually stop at this point. So what I want to do is come back and get to that point roughly where the music begins to taper off. And I'm just going to back that up some, right about in that area. And I'm just going to cut that section and delete that part. So now it should end abruptly. And if you don't want the music to end abruptly like that, or even to begin abruptly, what you can do is right click on it and go to add filter. We're going to do an audio filter, and we're going to go to volume. And at this point, I want to add in a couple of sections here. Let's just move this. Let me see. I'm going to advance this somewhat by holding down the arrow keys. As you can see, that little red line on that timeline starts to move. So just say I wanted the audio to fade out at the end. I could come move my marker down to this end, and I want to give it a fade out. What I want to do here is I'm going to click the plus button, and that will add a marker into this section. So just say at this section you want the audio to be playing at 100% volume, but at the end section you want the audio to be tapered down to nothing, so there's no sound at the end. You could type in 0 here, or you can use the plus and minus buttons. So now at the end it's going to taper down to nothing. So let's see what that sounds like now. So as you can see, now the audio tapers down to where there's no sound. So that's all you need to do. You can do the same thing as a lead in to audio. You can make the sound come up gradually, and at the end you can make it go down gradually. So that's how you do the audio if you want to do a fade in and fade out on an audio section. So what I'm going to do now is just finish up this video and get it the way I want to, and I will upload both of these videos, the tutorial video on how to use Flowblade, and this is just a brief tutorial, a real short walkthrough. There's a lot more you can do with Flowblade. This is just some of the simple stuff that you can do to do your videos, to put your videos together. And like I say, it's a free program. The only catch is you need Linux to be able to run it. But you can always dual boot or boot to an external hard drive to the Linux system. If you're familiar with computers, you can figure out how to do that, I'm sure. I use Linux Mint, and it's a real easy one to use. It reminds me a lot of some of the older Windows operating systems in the layout and things. All right, so if you've got your video put together, which this one's not complete, I've got more work to do to it, and I'm going to take care of that before I actually render this video. But if you're ready to save your video, if you got your project completed, you just click the render tab. And I like to use for my YouTube videos this H.264 MP4 setting. It creates a small file size, and the video is of decent quality. And then you just save it wherever you want to. I like to save mine on my desktop and put in your title there. And I do not change the kilobits per second settings or the audio settings. I found those to work good for me. I just leave them at their default. But you just want to title your file that you're going to save as an MP4 and click the render button, and it will do its thing, and your video will show up wherever you told it to go in your settings there. But that's all there is to it. It's real easy to use. It's free. It doesn't have a lot of features that the more complicated video editing software has. But I just kind of wanted to put this out there, maybe to give people an introduction to it that might not have been familiar with it, because I really like it, and I actually use it for about 99% of everything I do. I'm going to start probably using some other programs in addition to this at some point when I get ready to try to play around with other things that are a little more complex. But at this point, right now, I'm using this pretty much exclusively, and I will probably always go back to it from putting out some simple videos like this one I'm making here. it's not complicated. It doesn't require a lot of the bells and whistles on some of the more complex programs out there. So this is a quick, free, easy to use interface. It's once you learn the keyboard shortcuts, it's really even easier than going and clicking on certain buttons as you go. So I just thought I'd throw it out there and see if anybody else might be interested in it. And for now, I'm going to wrap these videos up and do the tutorial video in addition to the drop shot video and get those uploaded. So appreciate y'all watching and take care.